yesterday. So today we're going to be having a bit of a discussion around ceremony. So ceremony, different traditional practices during this time of COVID-19 and how we're all navigating through that right now. So I'm going to be your moderator today. Chokma, Sahoju Fawat, Lindsey. Chakasha Seya. So my name is Lindsey Bacigal, and I am the Communications Director at Indigenous Climate Action. I am Chickasaw, Irish, and Polish, originally from south of the Medicine Line from Michigan. Any Michigan people are on the line, hello. And now I currently reside on Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory in so-called Canada in Ottawa. So today we have three wonderful folks with us for this continuation of our webinar series. These webinars are being presented in collaboration between Indigenous Climate Action, or ICA, and then also Indigenous Environmental Network, or IEN. You might also hear Indigenous Rising Media, which is a project of IEN, which aims to amplify Indigenous voices throughout media. So our last webinar, we focused around caution and talking about vulnerable folks within our communities. So we had Crystal Martin-Lipensky on, who discussed remote and flying communities in the northern context and what it's like up there right now. We had Veronica Fuentes, who talked about houseless folks out west and what she's doing in Miskatchewa-Skowhegan, or Edmonton right now, to help folks out there. And then we also had Joy Brown on, who spoke to disabled folks within Indigenous communities right now and how they're getting through COVID-19. So today, in the continuation of what we're framing as the four C's, we have ceremony. And then after this, we'll also have compassion in communities. So next week, we'll be focusing on compassion and how we can come together during this time. And then our final webinar will be centered around community. So we're hoping to do some storytelling with elders at that time. But today, the focus of our webinar, again, is around some traditional practices that are helping us to get through COVID-19. And we have these three wonderful speakers on with us today. So we have Gabby, who works with the Assembly of Seven Generations, and we have Carlee, and we have Tuffy as well. So I'm just gonna start us off with first doing just some introductions of everyone. So I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves. We'll go ahead and start with, we'll do Tuffy first, starting southernmost first. So Tuffy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hashmi daguye bi Tuffy jema chen wasewak ba dichidaha namakodo wicha jema chenen onspe winchakia je chamu nakoni abn Oma Kawinehta do Odabe on speech Giabichen, Echen Washkambichen. I'm really grateful to be with all these beautiful ladies here today to speak a little bit about the works that is happening throughout Indian country in regard to ceremony, culture, all of the things that we need to continue to do to raise our children properly. I'm a language teacher. I've taught the Nakota language for almost 20 years here in Fort Belknap, and just super excited to be here with everybody today. Shana.
Thank you very much, Tuffy. Maybe next we want to have Gabby. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. So ani bojo tanchekiwa mi shendengwe ankwat kwendishnakas pakjahansi and donjiba umamawene ne nishnabe king and donji makwando dam. So hi everyone, my name is Gabrielle Fayant. Most people know me as Gabby. I'm originally from Alberta. My family comes from one of the 8 land-based Métis settlements called Fishing Lake. And I'm a guest here on traditional, unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory. And I'm part of the Bear Clan. So miigwet chai hai, thanks for having me here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
And finally, we have Carlee.
Gonzegwego, Kawinehta, Ujats, Ganet Kahaga Najadodu, Dano Ganawage Nide Wagenu. Oh, hi, my name is Carlee Kawinehta Loft. I'm Ganet Kahaga Mohawk. My family's from Ganawage. I currently live in Montreal, or also known as Jojage. I work for an org known as Canadian Roots Exchange. I'm mostly going to be talking about beadwork, which is aside from that.
Thank you much, Carlee, and everyone. It's so great to hear so many Indigenous languages being spoken already. I know for myself, I'm still fairly new to learning Chickasaw, so I'm still a bit of a beginner. And so, yeah, kind of with that, just jumping off of that, I suppose, Tuffy, do you maybe want to address kind of your work as, you know, doing language revitalization and how you all are kind of transitioning that work during COVID-19 and what that looks like?
For sure. This past year, Fort Belknap was awarded an A&A grant in regards to like a language immersion nest. So currently we have, on Fort Belknap, there are two tribes. Our sister tribe, they're called the Ani, white clay people. French people called them Grovons. So they've gone by Grovons since reservation time, but they call themselves Ani, white clay people. So we have two Ani teachers that are in training, and then we also have two Nakota teachers who are in training. And the idea is within the year, depending on how things work out, we'll be ready to open a daycare immersion language nest. And it's been an awesome experience. Like I say, I taught for almost 20 years here in the public schools. I began teaching right after I graduated school. In the state of Montana, we have what's called a Class 7 teacher certification, allowing individuals to be compensated as a regular teacher, with a degree or whatnot. So I applied for that right out of high school, and I began teaching. Through the course of all of these years, there's been so much that has happened. One of the good things was our tribes here in the early years, like in the 70s and in the 80s, I guess, there were different linguists who came through the country and did a lot of recording. So we've worked with the Indiana University for, I guess, like since the 70s. And the Ani people, they've worked with the University of Colorado since that time. So we have a plethora of information, audio recordings, those types of things. But both of our languages here on Fort Belknap, they have less than 20 fluent speakers in both of the languages. So we've been in a upward movement for about the past 20 years, trying to increase our speakers. So at this point in the venture, it's we want to focus on babies to try to instill those languages in our children as quickly as possible, and then follow up with parent classes and continue. But it's hard, in the world, it's hard to, everybody is worried about their language, but when you're making car payments and house payments and all those kind of things, not everybody has time to take a class to learn them. So we're trying to do our very best to adapt to the world that we're living in, via technology like we're doing right now. It's a good way to get a lot of information out, especially with everybody being home. They have time to check out language lessons or listen to stories and what have you.
Thanks, Tuffy. I know, yeah, we were saying before we started doing the live stream about some of the apps that are out there. That for me, I have an app on my phone for Chickasaw, so I can, learn a couple of words every few days, and that's been really helpful for me just to kind of work along that language revitalization route. Does anyone else want to address that? I don't know if Gabby, maybe do you want to speak to your classes?
Yeah, so here in Ottawa, we started doing a Anishinaabemowin, so like Ojibwe, like Lake of the Woods dialect Ojibwe. We started doing those language classes last year, actually, and it was really just a young person that said, I wanna teach my grandpa's language. And we're like, okay, cool, let's do it. And so, at the time we were able to find someone donated a space that we could gather every Wednesday. And then we just paid for equipment out of our own pocket, like some notebooks and papers and pens. And then we even had almost like a mobile little chalkboard that the youth took with them every week. And we just started from there. And it really started to grow, and there was definitely a lot of committed learners. And it's very true, like not everybody is able to commit because of everything that we have going on in our lives. But ironically, now that we've went to online, we've actually seen like a huge increase in the amount of learners that are able to commit. So that's been really cool to see. And so we just went straight to online. We didn't miss one class, and we've been doing that ever since we've started quarantine. And we switch it up. We do fun things like we play bingo, and we also read from different books in Anishinaabe. It kind of feels like we're in grade school all over again, and like the teacher made you read like a paragraph. We kind of do that, but in the language. And it's been really nice. But yeah, so Assembly of Seven Generations, we're a nonprofit, youth-led, youth-driven, like really grassroots organization. We have no core funding. Like most of the work we do is like off of really small grants from different opportunities that we come across. So we do that work as volunteers. No one actually gets paid a salary to teach the language or organize those things, which is really unfortunate because we put in so much work, and the young people that support A7G put in so much work too, but despite the odds, we're still committed to learning those languages and revitalizing those languages and revitalizing culture and ceremony and bringing that back to the young people today and for the future generations.
Thanks. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add in terms of language? Tuffy, I don't know if you have anything in specific in terms of, pandemic world and language, what that's looked like for you all in your work?
Well, we've just had to reorganize it, and everybody, I think for about 3 weeks now, we've been working from home, and that's kind of been a challenge, a little bit interesting to get across. But again, with the technology that's available, everybody is keeping close contact to try to meet deadlines and work forward. But it's been a really good time also just to slow down and think about what are the key things that you think people want to know right now during this time and space, and then try to provide those types of terms or sentences and what have you. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a time for a lot of ingenuity and a lot of changing up how we are used to doing things, how we normally do things. And I've seen a lot of really interesting webinars coming out of this time and space, a lot of interesting online classes. I participate in the A7G webinars sometimes, the Assembly of Seven Generations webinars. And there's also a weekly youth drop-in where some awesome stuff happens, just bringing together youth during this time. So I don't know if you maybe want to also speak to that, Gabby?
Yeah, we haven't skipped a beat. We've still been doing all of our regular programming, and we've actually added to our regular programming also. But about 2 years ago, here in Ottawa, there was it's a little bit of a long story, but just to keep it short and simple, basically here in Ottawa, there was like a homeless drop-in that had been shut down. There was funding that had stopped going to that drop-in, and because that drop-in closed, the Ottawa community, the Indigenous community, saw an increase in death in our community. We saw many more people not having that support that they needed. There was a really big increase in opioid use, and people were dying here in Ottawa. And those are those things that you'll never hear about in media, because those rates and those reasons for those deaths in our community are undocumented. But we knew that our relatives and our relations were passing away. And we went and we met with some really amazing young people in Winnipeg, and that's AO, Aboriginal Youth Opportunities. And they started telling us about what they do every Friday. And what they do is meet me at the bell tower. And they just started talking to us about it, and we're like, wow, we really need something like that in Ottawa too. And they said, just do it. And we were like, yeah, you're right, we should just do it. And like, again, like, we don't have any money, like we didn't even have a room that was committed to us at that point, but we're like, okay, we're gonna do this, you know. And I think we put a lot of good intentions into making that happen, and we prayed really hard. And sure enough, people were like, hey, here's a room you could use every Friday. And other people were like, hey, I'll make you food. And other people were like, here's like things you could give to the youth every Friday. And here's an activity you could do with the youth every Friday. And we've been meeting every single Friday, rain or shine. One time there was even a tornado that happened in Ottawa, and we're still meeting. And we're so committed. It doesn't matter what we have or what we don't have. We'll be there every Friday. And the same is true for our commitment to be there every Friday online. And so some of the adjustments we've had to do for Friday night drop-ins is we've had to help young people get access to the internet, because not everybody has that access. You know, having access to internet and tablets and phones, that's a privilege that not everyone has. You know, and so that's something we've been working on. And we've also been working on ways that, so we usually do like a meal every Friday. And so that's like really important for young people that might not have enough food at home. You know, they come out on Fridays, they know they're gonna have a full belly and leave and feel good. And so we've been thinking about ways that we can make sure that's still happening. But yeah, we've been adjusting, we've been adapting, and now we're starting to do like webinars here and there that young people want to lead. And so on Saturday, we just did a water walk webinar. And this really awesome young person who loves the water just talked about water and all the ways that you can protect the water and care for the water. And then Mondays, we're now starting like a weekly tea and chat with knowledge keepers and elders. And so every Monday we'll have a different knowledge keeper that will just share teaching, share whatever it is that they really feel like they want to share to the young people. And it will also be an opportunity for youth to ask them questions and just have a cool dialogue with an elder or knowledge keeper. So those are some of the ways that we've been continuing what we do.
Thanks, Gabby. Y'all do such amazing work. And yeah, it's just so great to see all these different ways that Indigenous folks are continuing to persevere and just come up with all these new ways of doing things right now, and continue to pass down knowledge and continue to come together in community. Even if we can't be together physically, still finding ways to come together is, yeah, it's just a really great thing to see that, you know, no matter what, we find ways to adapt. And speaking of, again, adaptation and webinars and whatnot, Carlee has also been on a webinar that I attended recently too, around beading. So Carlee, it'd be great if you can speak to your beading prowess.
Oh, yeah, sure. So yeah, it's the same idea where we recognize that a lot of these practices are, you know, really important for youth and for community and relationship building. And it's hard when you can't meet in person. So my work was trying, well, CRE, Canadian Roots Exchange, we were trying to set up webinars where we would host a beading circle, which it's not unique. There's so many happening right now. And the idea is, you know, get as many going so people in different networks will find them. And we all just brought our different beading projects with us, opened our webcams, and yeah, explored the different things we were doing. Personally, I wouldn't call it my beading prowess. I've been doing it maybe 2 years, so just starting. But for me, it's always been something that's connected to my family. It's been something that brings me a lot of pride to be able to do and to make things that I can wear and that I can gift to my relatives is awesome. And I think what's really unique about this time is there's a lot more beaders who are going and putting on these webinars, tutorials. I showed Lindsey earlier and shared it with everyone in this chat. There's a list that I made. It's really small, so far, but hopefully if we share it, it'll get bigger, of resources for online stores where you can buy beads still, of different Instagrammers who are putting up Instagram TVs of them beading, as well as YouTube tutorials, anything from like basic beaded earrings to moccasins you can find online right now. And it's all being hosted by Indigenous craft people. And it's a way that if you didn't have access to that before, you really can now. And that's what's so brilliant right now, is just so many more people are getting access to these things. I mean, if you're out of your community, or if you just never had the opportunity to connect with somebody who had those skills, it's a really unique time. Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to ask about A7G, is how you guys are overcoming that access issue, like how you're getting Wi-Fi to the people who don't have it, because that's something that myself and the work that I do, I'm still struggling to do, like how to come up with plans to get more youth access to this.
Yeah, like for us, like we have a smaller community. So basically, like we just ask the youth, like are you able to participate? Do you want to participate in this? Like, what do you need to participate? And yeah, they're pretty straightforward with us, because we've created relationships with them for so many years. And some will just tell us, like, I don't have Wi-Fi at home, and so literally just buying Wi-Fi for them, like and sometimes they'll be like, okay, you like set up Wi-Fi and we can try to reimburse you, we'll find ways to get like the funds covered. And then they'll say things like, well, who do I call, like what do I do, I don't even know like what to do. And so like I'll actually have to call and set up like installment appointments for them. So things like that, like just kind of like continuing to be those aunties and those uncles and those aunties that, you know, we've always been for them. Just continuing it, but just, you know, kind of changing how we do it in small ways. And so I think right now something that's really important is outreach, and like really connecting with the person, because a lot of times, like if you reach out to them and you're like, hey, like what do you need, like how are you doing, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm fine, you know. But meanwhile, like there's so much going on at home, and there's so many things that they need actual help with. So you have to like keep asking them, like, are you sure, like do you need this, what about this, are you good for this? And yeah, eventually like they start opening up. But yeah, just I think that's one of the biggest changes, is like how you actually do the outreach.
I'm wondering, going off of that as well, Tuffy, in terms of language sharing and, you know, promoting the language, how do you all go about promoting? Are there just people that come to you that ask to participate in classes? Do you all do any sort of outreach to folks? Kind of what does that look like in your community?
So in the initial setup of our program, our immersion program, one of the grant requirements is to, of course, work with your community. And again, one of the cool things about technology is here on Fort Belknap, we have a little over 6,000, maybe close to 7,000 enrolled members, half of whom live here on the reservation, and then the rest, you know, they're out in the world. So we very quickly made a Facebook page. We very quickly made a YouTube channel. And as we're teaching our teachers, you know, all of those things are readily available for anybody who may want to view them. Nakota people were from the Siouan language family stock, and our neighboring reservation to the east of us, Fort Peck, there's the Assiniboines there. We're also called the Assiniboines. But in Saskatchewan, kind of eastern Saskatchewan, well, I guess across the whole province there, all the way even over to the Battleford area, there's Assiniboines all throughout there. So I mean, it's really readily available, shared, and people are able to access these things. Like I told these girls prior, I'm so technologically disadvantaged that I don't even know what the hell's going on most time in the world. But our staff is pretty cool. They created TikTok accounts and all these. It's pretty awesome to see these. I mean, the younger people, that's their world. That's what they understand. So it's really cool to see that information shared, you know, in a user-friendly way. maybe not so much as, like the 7 generations when you were talking about chalkboards. I remember those days too, when we all had chalkboards and whiteboards and pens and papers, but it's really fun to see what people can create, with the material that's at hand.
We are just such creative people, no matter what. We always find ways to work with what we have. And yeah, I suppose going off of that as well, it's funny that you brought up TikTok, because I recently got a TikTok and I have noticed that there's so much Indigenous content on TikTok, that there are so many people that are promoting language, that are promoting different practices, that are showing their regalia. Also is so cool to see people showing their music, people talking about MMIWGs. So I don't know, has anyone else been on TikTok and experienced this? Maybe not you, Tuffy. I know that you're not super into technology, but I don't know if Carlee or Gabby, if you've been on TikTok and seen any of that.
I still haven't made a TikTok yet, but I see people sharing them onto Instagram. So it's so cool. I love the videos with everybody coming out with their regalia on. There's been like 3 different variations with like Inuit people, like First Nations people here in Canada, people in the States. It's been really amazing. Honestly, that's part of my motivation for, like, I can show you some of it. A lot of what I do is finishing up work on my regalia, and as I see these videos, I'm just like, I gotta get on it, gotta finish, gotta make a TikTok. Yeah, so it's like these kind of things. And that's what's so cool. Like, we're all gaining these skills and then sharing the products of what we're working on. And it's a good way to take this almost like anxiety fueled time where you're kind of unsure of what you should be doing or what you can be doing, and filling it with something really fulfilling, like creating your regalia, creating videos to showcase that, finding new ways to connect to each other. Didn't think I would find that in TikTok, but here we are.
Who knew? Who knew? Yeah, speaking of, talking about ceremony and traditional practices, how have folks been incorporating ceremony into their lives still during this time? I know that it can be difficult round dances being canceled, all of our powwows being canceled. So how are folks still keeping up with ceremony during this time? I know for myself that, I've still got my sage, got my sweetgrass, so doing that every day. But, otherwise it can still feel a bit difficult not being able to really feel connected to the land and the water right now. So I don't know if we just want to do a go around, maybe Gabby, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, we actually, on Friday night, this past Friday night, we had a pipe ceremony. And we didn't have like the pipe ceremony itself actually on video, but kind of like to the side, there was one of our knowledge keepers that was having the pipe ceremony, and then their son was singing the songs. And so like we all collectively were like, okay, pipe ceremony has started now. And so we prayed together. And I know that some people might be like, oh, well, that's not how I was taught how to do that, or you shouldn't be bringing technology close to ceremonies, or you shouldn't do this or this. And that's fair. Like, everybody can have their own opinions, but I know that in that moment, we were connected. We were all praying together. And that's what was most important to me. And I know for me and my husband that we're here, like it made us feel so much better to have those moments. And we have to adapt. We have to find ways to adapt our ceremonies. And sometimes those are having really tough questions or tough conversations with our elders and knowledge keepers, and really getting to the root of the ceremonies. What parts of the ceremony have actually been adapted, and what parts of those ceremonies can be changed? What parts of them cannot be changed at all? And those are sometimes really hard questions to have. And so I also have been thinking about, how ceremonies have come to Indigenous people. And they often have come to us through really hard times. For example, like the jingle dress, or even the drums, or even Sundance, or any of those ceremonies. They were gifted to us during really hard times. And so I wonder, you know, maybe there's a ceremony that, or a different protocol that happens during this time. But I also think it's important that we are gentle with each other. Because imagine if there was a new ceremony that happened, like a new, like amazing, I don't know, like dance even that came to be, or protocol or practice. Like imagine if that was to be talked about online. You know, I could just hear all the comments and all the lateral violence that would take place. You know, so we have to think about that and be gentle, and also be gentle in how we adapt things. Maybe something isn't meant to be adapted, but it doesn't mean that we should just attack someone because of that, but have like good conversations about why that part shouldn't actually be adapted, or why that ceremony can't be adapted like that. So those are some things I've been thinking about. And then, for example, like on Saturday, you know, we all got our water out, and we sang, one person on the camera sang a water song. And during that time, we all prayed for that water, and then we drank our water. And I think those things are okay, you know, and I think that those are ways we can continue to practice these ceremonies online. And then I also, I think it's really important that we adapt and find ways to do things online, because there are so many Indigenous folks that haven't actually been connected to culture yet, you know, and so because they haven't been connected to culture yet, do we just stop like supporting them and educating them because we're in quarantine? And I don't think that's right. So finding ways that we can continue to revitalize our languages and ceremonies and cultures is number one priority to me. So that's where we've been at.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult when, you know, so many folks do have very specific ways they like to do ceremony, how they go about practices, and there might be, you know, a lot of, you know, steps involved and just a very specific, you know, you do this, this, and this. But during this time, it really is forcing us to look at, you know, a lot of these things and say, what can we do differently? What should be done differently? And it is okay if we have differences amongst ourselves in terms of opinion as to, you know, should something be adapted? Should something not be adapted? Can we take something out during this time? So it is definitely difficult, but I think, yeah, to Gabby's point, it's very important to be gentle with each other. And even if maybe you don't disagree, or maybe if you disagree with how somebody else is doing ceremony, to, if you really feel the need to speak to them about it, call them in, don't call them out for it. So it's not something where you need to be, you know, bashing people on social media or anything like that, or gossiping, but, you know, maybe it's just a matter of having conversations with people and trying to understand why they're doing things the way that they're doing things, because this is a time that many of us have not experienced anything like this before. So a lot of us are trying just to adapt the best way we can and just do as little harm as possible to ourselves in multiple ways, physically, mentally, spiritually, and to everyone else as well. And so, Carlee, I don't know if maybe you want to go next and just talk about your ceremony during this time.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to do a quick shout out. It's you can find it on Facebook. It's called Web of Virtual Kin Week. I've been following them. They've been doing all kinds of ceremonies online. Like they had a sunrise ceremony. They're doing different webinars. Those are great to jump in on. Personally, I've been trying to find small ways for myself to check back in. And like you said, be gentle with myself. A practice to bring it back to beadwork is, I was told once by an elder, her name's Vicky Boldo. She actually calls herself a junior elder, or like a pre-elder. But she was telling me about how, as she beads, when she's doing something, she's putting in intentions with each bead, and how sometimes it's her thinking and putting in good intentions for the person that she's gifting that piece of beadwork to, or just ways to put how she's feeling into her beadwork. And I find that's a practice I've been doing a lot more, because sometimes it's like knowing to check in with yourself and how you're feeling. So for me, sometimes I think, oh, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling restless. I should work on my beads. I should work on my regalia. and then I find I'm rushing through it, or I'm not feeling good while I'm doing the beadwork. And it reminds me to take a minute and maybe check in with my loved ones and come back to the work later. And then when I come back to it, you know, putting in those thoughts of, you know, positivity for the future, thinking of when I'll be able to wear this regalia when we're all back out at powwows and everything. So it's just small things like that. And, you know, taking comfort in virtual gatherings of people, like getting cousins on Zoom, getting your friends on Zoom, and remembering to do that check-in.
Yeah, I really like the idea around intention for sure, because it is so true that if you're trying to do some sort of, you know, traditional practice or something, it's so difficult if you're not in the right headspace for it to even do that practice. And so at that point, you know, it is really important to take a step back. And I feel like during this time of the pandemic, it really is giving us more time to take a step back and to really think about things, because our ceremonies not being able to be as structured right now either, because they're not happening in person. It's not like, you know, oh, this, you know, sweat is happening on this day at this time, and so I have to be there. It's not like that right now. So it is really giving us the time to, you know, almost decide when ceremony feels right to us, and deciding, you know, am I in the right headspace for this? Am I going to be able to set good intentions during this? Am I being able to have, you know, a good positive outlook while I'm doing this? So I think that that's also a really important point there, Carlee. And then Tuffy, finally, do you want to speak to ceremony during this time? Maybe what you've been practicing, if you've seen other folks practicing things.
For sure. You know, our people, we've adapted since time immemorial. We've always adapted into the world that surrounds us, and you know, I agree with the ladies. Everything that they've shared is very true. When Carlee was talking about her beadwork, I was remembering my late grandmother, who everything that she made, there was a story, there was a prayer, and sadly, you know, as we were acculturated, there were generations, and even us in our generation, we really didn't understand what we had, what those gifts were that our people made for us. And a lot of times they might end up in a hawk shop, or, you know, you lose those things, and that's a really a sad thing to happen. But in regard to you know, this time and space, because we're such a large land base here, you know, my nearest neighbor is like a quarter mile away from me, so it's not that hard to self-isolate. I mean, this is how we grew up. This is what we know. But we have the bush and the creek and the mountains and the horses. I mean, we can still go around and you know, connect with nature. So for the folks who live in the city, I imagine it's a lot more harder. There's so much more going on there. And then, you know, I know we all think about the folks that live in the city, our relatives that are having it so hard. But one of the things that always ring in my ears, you know, from the people who have walked the earth prior, is the importance of our home fire. And if we can keep our home fire clean, and we can keep our smudge burning, you know, these things will pass. These things will, I mean, the time will come when we can readjust and get back to how things are supposed to be in regard to our ceremony. And then even, you know, like she's saying, maybe there are more ceremonies that are coming. Maybe there are more songs and more stories to be told. And we just have to be cognizant enough to recognize what's going on around us. I know, you know, like all of the things that we're talking to, even for myself, you know, speaking this vastly across the internet, that's really something that I'm not very comfortable with yet, because it's never been something that I've experienced. But again, knowing this time in this space, and how people, we have to try to connect to one another, we have to try to help each other and hold each other up. But also, again, I'll go back to our home fire, and how, you know, we continue to love our children, and we continue to keep our home fire clean, and then we're going to come through this.
Sorry, I was just checking for questions. Yeah, just a reminder to folks as well that if you have a question in particular, you can go ahead and just put it as a comment on any of the Facebook live streams that are happening right now, and we'll do our best to answer it. there is a question, and thank you, Tuffy, as well, for all of your points. Definitely, I'm always very much thinking of, especially being in an urban area, you know, how practices and ceremonies have to be different in urban areas. You know, it's just part of the adaptation that's required in an urban area. And even Veronica on our last webinar, she works with houseless folks, as I mentioned, in Amiskitchewaskagan or Edmonton. And yeah, and she was, you know, putting together little baggies of medicine to take to folks, to Indigenous folks living, you know, rough right now. And so it's important that during this time, we're also not forgetting of, you know, of all those folks that are vulnerable among us, and that they also still need to be able to access ceremony. And it might mean bringing the ceremony to them. Not everyone can necessarily go out and get their sage or their sweetgrass or, you know, their tobacco. So, you know, how do we make sure that we're still including everyone? How do we make sure we're still including, you know, our elders that maybe can't go outside right now, that are immunocompromised folks, disabled folks? How are we making sure that we're still keeping everyone within, you know, ceremony and making sure that they still have access to that? And to that point as well, Nathan was asking around, have any of the panelists found positive changes to adapting practices such as increased accessibility? So I'm, yeah, kind of thinking in terms of, he mentioned specifically the Anishinaabe Moen classes. So has anyone else, in terms of, you know, adapting their work or their practices right now, noticed that you've, you know, maybe seen an increase in engagement right now?
Yeah, I mean, just beadwork wise, there's so many. Like I mentioned before, I started that list. If any of you are interested in learning beadwork, there's many different Indigenous folks creating content online and on so many different platforms. Just shoot, I guess, IAC or Lindsey a message to get the link.
You can shoot ICA a message. We'll send you the link.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot more engagement with it too. Like I work with youth across the country, and yeah, those who I knew hadn't beaded ever before are sharing with me links saying like, look, I'm starting now. This is the first thing I've created, and they're sending me photos of, you know, earrings that they've started or patches, because it's just more accessible, and it's stuff that before, if you weren't living on reserve or access, like before this was doing a weekly class, just like a beading circle in Kawinehta, and that's a really amazing experience because it's bonding with the people that you love and who have commonalities, and you're all working towards similar goals, and you get to share what you're creating and share the stories behind each piece. And that's something a lot of youth I work with never had an opportunity to do before, because they were either living in the city or those practices were lost in their family. And now they're finding beading circles online, and they're finding tutorials. So I've really noticed an increase in content being created for youth and other people who want to learn, and, you know, in turn, you're getting a lot more people engaging with it.
Yeah, kind of that revitalization of all aspects of culture. And it is really great to see more and more people wanting to get involved. And also, yeah, just seeing more and more people putting their work out there, you know, doing their beading, their regalia. I see a lot of people painting as well, just like seeing all of this Indigenous content that's happening in all these different formats, whether in terms of artistic things, in terms of you know, doing webinars like this and whatnot. It's really great to see so many people putting out that content right now and making it so that other folks can feel involved as well. I don't know if Gabby or Tuffy, if either of you want to, you know, add to that in terms of increased engagement in this moment, if you've seen any of that.
Yeah, for us, it's mainly been the increased engagement on language. And then also we've seen quite a bit more engagement on, I guess, like folks asking for particular conversations to happen, and then like how quickly we're able to turn that around. So it's like there's a lot of conversations and teachings happening in a really condensed time, which is really cool. And then I also wanted to mention that a lot of ceremonies actually involve, you know, self-isolation. And so, you know, I don't think it kind of like almost feels like we're going through, you know, for example, like when you fast, usually you would go out and you'd be on your own for a little bit. So I feel like, you know, we know how to do this. We know how to self-isolate, and yeah, like we miss like being at the round dance or going to the powwow and having those kind of interactions. But I feel like, you know, we know how to do this, and you know, it is going to be okay. And it is a time for self, like just self-empowerment and self, like focusing on yourself and helping yourself just grow stronger and work on maybe those things you didn't have time to work on before.
Tuffy, do you have any additions?
Yeah, I guess, you know, in language work, it's always interesting to, with all of the technology and all the different formats that things are going out, I see, you know, language challenges happening, and that's engaging people, making people use their languages. And it's really awesome to hear. It's awesome to see. A lot of the like in-depth questions people are asking today, they're wanting to know specifics. You know, how do you manipulate a verb? How do you conjugate this? What is this thought? So there's, I mean, people are actually, we have time today to think about things, you know, to really think about what we're trying to say or how we're trying to explain ourselves. And it's really been an awesome, there just seems to be so much more interest right now, because again, I think because people have time, they're able to sit and think. We did some work for Health Canada in reference to like the flyers that are going out in the communities, you know, all written in the code. And I mean, these are things that are really, I always give props to Canada, because they seem to be so much farther ahead of the United States in that regard, in regard to First Nations people. So, you know, even our countries again are reestablishing that we have a different language. You know, maybe English or French is not our first language, and they're starting to realize that, and maybe, you know, from that we'll see speakers again.
Right, yeah, that's a good point in terms of accessibility of resources. So it's not enough to just put out a resource in English or French or Spanish and assume that that's, you know, relevant to everyone. I know that in the northern context that there are so many folks who still speak Inuktitut. So, you know, it's so important to make sure that all these important resources that are literally, in many cases right now in this current pandemic, that are kind of life and death resources, you know, it's all these important things that people need to know. So it also is really important to make sure that they're being put out in every language possible, really, just to make sure that they are as accessible as they can possibly be, so that folks can be safe. Going back as well to the point of ceremony, so Gabby and I had discussed this a little bit before, and I'd love to have her address this in terms of songs. So when we're thinking about something like songs right now, you know, how are we going to, you know, how are we using songs right now? How do we keep passing down songs during this time?
Yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting one. You know, like I feel fortunate that I've been able to learn as many songs as I had before going into self-isolation. You know, and I feel kind of lucky that, you know, I can be at home and I could sing those songs because I've been taught them, but not everybody has been taught all the songs or all the songs that they need or want to learn. And so we've been thinking about, like, you know, how could we have like an online drum circle? Would that even work? And so far we've learned that it wouldn't really work the same as it does in person. But you know, and also it can be kind of intimidating to just be like on a on like a webinar like this, and then like everyone's on mute and you're the only one singing. So it just doesn't feel the same. But we've been adjusting, and we still sing those songs when people ask for them. And it's been really awesome to see some of like the virtual round dances that have been happening. And it's not up to me or anyone else to say or to like condemn how someone is doing what's right for them. It's not up to me to say like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that or singing that song, because I don't know how that song is helping that person. But what I do know is from my own experience that those songs and those ceremonies, those are lifelines. And so it's not up to me to turn anybody's lifeline down or to interrupt that in any way. But I know that it's been really great to see the virtual round dances and to hear those songs. And even in like our virtual meetups, someone will just say, hey, I want to sing this song, or hey, can you sing that song for me? I forget how it goes. And that's how we do things.
Yeah, it's funny because I, again, on TikTok, seeing people share songs on TikTok even, because again, it can be definitely it would be really difficult to coordinate doing it over a webinar or something like this, because it would all be, mistimed and lag and whatnot. It might be really difficult, but, if you just want to sing by yourself or maybe with other people that you're in isolation, it really is a beautiful thing to still be able to, carry forward those songs and to still be, hearing them and to be hearing our languages as well. I don't know if Carlee or Tuffy, if either of you have anything to add.
I haven't really hopped on into any webinars with songs, but there was an elder from my community, Sedalia Fazio, who did like a song challenge where she asked everybody who has a drum or who has a traditional song or a song of healing to share, to like just all go out at the same time on this one date. It was almost a month ago now. And they just all recorded themselves and posted it to the internet. And it's again one of those situations where it's really strong signs of community through these trying times and good ways to put those healing songs out into the world. So I thought it was really, really cool, especially because I don't get to hear some of these songs that often. So
yeah, it's definitely kind of to some of the other points that have been spoken to before around ceremony. It does seem like, almost like we're doing it in a way where we're all doing it individually, but at the same time. So it's like still having a big ceremony, but we're all just doing it in our own space. So yeah, it is really nice to see kind of this adaptation happen over time and how we can still, keep up doing those same things, but just, adjusting slightly to, to fit in with the current times as needed. And so kind of, related to that as well, in terms of, we want to make sure that during this time that no matter what we're doing, that we're doing it in a good way and we're living in a good way and we're thinking about moving forward in a good way. And so, thinking about the 7 generations ahead of us and what that means and how we're getting through this period of time and how, the actions that we take right now is going to have such an effect on future generations. And so I know that Gabby in specific kind of wanted to speak to that. So Gabby, maybe if you want to go ahead and we'll do another little roundabout of this.
Yeah, I wanted to just mention that the way that I understand ceremonies and our bundles and our sacred items is that they're gifts that are given to us to help us. But just because maybe you don't have a drum at home, or you've never been gifted an eagle feather or those kind of things, it doesn't mean that you're any less sacred. It doesn't mean that you're any less connected to Creator or your ancestors or anything like that. And so just remember that those those ceremonies, they're there to help us. And you know, like about a year ago, something really traumatic had happened in my life. I was working on something, a really big project, and someone that I was friends with basically stole all my work and made a lot of money off of it. And I'm still so upset about it. It makes me so furious. And I went to go see one of these knowledge keepers that I know, and she said, you know, I think you need a cedar bath. And I was like, okay, sure. And so often cedar baths are used to remove trauma that someone's carrying, to really get it off of them, so that they don't have to worry about it. And so she was doing that cedar bath for me, and she said, wow, you're carrying something really hot and something really heavy. And I told her what happened, and she said don't let their ways, don't let greed or lies or revenge or destruction infiltrate who you are. Just because someone hurt you or something hurt you doesn't mean you should act like them. And what she said is that the best way that you can combat capitalism and colonialism and all that violence is by remembering your traditional ways. So for me, like the best example of that I know of is like the 7 grandfather teachings, you know, and what those tell us, like how to live in a good way. And so for me, like first and foremost is like having those basic understandings, because, you know, like if you're not living in a good way, and if you're not being truthful and honest and loving and respectful, you know, ceremony can only help you so much, but you really have to walk in those ways. And that's what I want to leave for the next generations. I want to leave those tools and those ways of how we can live as Indigenous people in a good way.
Beautifully said, Gabby. And I feel like that's kind of, yeah, a good point. Yeah, kind of like, you know, an ending discussion for us. I don't know if maybe Carlee or Tuffy, if you want to address what it means to, you know, live in a good way, especially not even just in terms of the pandemic, you know, even though we are currently in the midst of a pandemic. I don't know if either of you want to address, you know, what it means to you to live in a good way. Maybe Tuffy, if you want to go ahead.
You know, the prior question, we was talking about songs and those types of things. And this morning on Facebook from the Turtle Lodge, it's somewhere in Saskatchewan, there was a Cree elder named AJ Felix, and he told a story and he sang a song. And just being able to hear, it was like a 12-minute video, but just being able to hear his story and his song and kind of how it correlated to everything that's going on right now in the world. And I mean, exactly to the question that you're talking about right now, you know, how do we navigate this? How do we get through this? How do we keep our home fires burning strong? But again, it's always that home fire is the most important thing. And is if we're taking care of our family, if we're taking care of ourselves, you know, we're going to continue to go. We're going to continue to go forward. Much like our ancestors prayed for us. I think a lot about, you know, in the days of Sitting Bull and those people when they were doing the ghost dance, and they were praying for the buffalo, and they were praying for the return of our ways. And then to see all of those things come full circle today, to see so many different Plains Indian tribes or wherever you're at, to see the buffalo come back, to see the salmon come back, to see all of these things that our ancestors had prayed for, you know, and we're a living part of that right now. I always think we're a link in that chain, you know, just as it goes forward, and we have to do our very best to try to leave what was left to us in a good way and add on to that, you know, to keep building that fire, to keep looking for good things for our future.
Thanks, Tuffy. And Carlee, do you have anything you want to say in terms of living in a good way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix of that question and what you mentioned a little bit earlier. I was thinking, it was actually something my dad said to me earlier today. I was telling him about this webinar and like, oh, what am I going to talk about beads? It's like, no, don't downplay that. Traditional arts and traditional practices breathe life into a community, and to remember that. And that stuck with me too, because in these times, and any times, I think sometimes people feel as though there's a need to be productive, a need to learn things for the sake of knowing them and not being judged for not knowing them, rather than learning to breathe life into those communities again. And I think if you're at home, or well, hopefully you're at home listening to these conversations, and you haven't participated in ceremony, or you don't know how to bead, and you're a little shy about accessing those resources, or maybe you haven't touched them because this whole experience is too anxiety ridden, or you don't have the energy, don't beat yourself up for it. Just remind yourself that any small step you're taking, do it in a way that's to breathe life back into those communities. Do it for you and do it for the people around you. And also, again, my dad had so many wise things to say today. He said to me too that we were talking about, coming back to beadwork, the differences between traditional and contemporary beadwork and where that line is. And he said to me, like, there's contemporary styles, and that's all still within a traditional practice. And how to understand the way you create within those practices is that you, as an Indigenous person, you're learning the vocabulary of that practice. You're learning the vocabulary of your nation, and you're creating and innovating within that. So don't be afraid to take the vocabulary when it has to do with ceremony, when it has to do with beadwork, and innovate to where you are now. It's an innovation within that vocabulary, within that understanding, and however you take that is good.
Wow, so wonderfully stated, everyone. So many beautiful Indigenous folks everywhere. It's it's just always so great to hear, just to hear from community members from all over Turtle Island and all over the world, really, just of different, practices, different ways of getting through this time. Yeah, thank you all so much for participating on this. And I was just wondering, just kind of as, again, another little wrap up thing, if everyone just wants to say, where they can get connected with the work you're doing, or if you have anything else you want to, plug right now. Maybe Gabby, if you want to go ahead with some of the upcoming things A7G has. I'll also, I'll post the links to any of these things that are mentioned onto the Facebook event page as well. So anyone who's watching, you'll be able to access anything that is brought up right here too.
Cool. I might even try to share my screen. Okay, let's try this. All right, so can you see my screen?
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, so this is gonna be what we're doing tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And we're gonna have our first webinar with an elder knowledge keeper, John Rice. And that's, so he's an Anishinaabe, so it'll be Anishinaabe teachings. And then on Wednesdays, we do our weekly Anishinaabe Moan drop-in. And that's Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. We do all of our webinars on Zoom. And so basically you just have to message the A7G account. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, on Facebook, or you can also email us at admin@a7g.ca. And then this is also what we do on Fridays from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And on Fridays, it's we don't really have an agenda. So we just hang out, we just chill. Sometimes we kind of, we're looking at how we could play virtual games and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we just do a check-in. So we kind of, So normally every Friday night we would do like a sharing circle, and that's like a peer-to-peer support. That's like a check-in to see how people are doing each week, and we just do the same thing online. And you know, that's an example of how we've adapted a sharing circle online, is that, you know, we all take the time to listen to each person as they share. And yeah, so those are like our 3 things that are happening. They happen every week, and then we also have kind of like special events that happen here and there. So miigwech, hi, thanks for having me. It was a really great conversation with you all.
Thanks, Gabby and A7G, for all of your amazing work. Tuffy, do you have anything you want to promote, plug?
Like you could check out the work that we're doing on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. I think it's Life's Language Lodge. And there's also the same thing, Life's Language Lodge is a YouTube channel. But yeah, just learn your language. That's the essence of who we are. It explains our world. And I know a lot of times we get excited and we get worried, but if we're able to think and be rational and be safe, you know, we have that responsibility for our future. We are very blessed people as First Nations people, and we have to make sure that all of these things, and like all of you folks, all the work that you're doing, you're pushing that forward. So I commend you all, and I was really happy to be a part today. Pinama.
Thanks, Tuffy, and finally, Carlee.
I was quickly doing a search on my Facebook, like, what are the ones that I should plug? The main one is the virtual week of Kin. It's been really great. It's really wonderful people. So again, that's Web of Virtual Kin Week. That's hosted by Mo Clark, if you know who that is. Wonderful Indigenous artist, and a whole bunch of other people. It's kind of just a community initiative, getting people together online. If you're in or around Jojage, Montreal, there's Covid19 Jojage. It's just a page where people are sharing resources. Some of them aren't even specific to Jojage. It's like webinar stuff. So if you want to hop on that, it's for Indigenous folks, and they really are just very on top of sharing things, and sometimes impromptu like sharing circles online that you can just hop into. And there's another one. If you are looking to learn Kawinehta, there's the Kawinehta. It's the Language and Cultural Center Facebook page. They have Kawinehta Words of the Day. They also have a YouTube channel. I forget what it's called, but I can send it to Lindsey after. Where I work is doing some things too. They kind of put a pause on webinars, but CRE is offering a community support fund for different orgs. If you want to apply to it, it's $5,000 that can go towards just any kind of support projects for your community in this time. It's got like 4 different waves. I'll send the link to Lindsey as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone's doing such amazing things. Yeah, just kind of as a final, you know, a couple of notes, I'll just say that Indigenous Climate Action on our blog, that we have a blog post with resources specific to Indigenous folks, not all specific to Indigenous folks, but a lot of them, during COVID-19 that we developed in collaboration with the 4Rs youth movement. So thank you 4Rs. Also some great youth doing some great things here in so-called Canada. And then as well, we also have a blog post that has a list of different places to donate to during this time. We were getting a lot of questions from folks that were asking, you know, how can we support Indigenous folks during this time? Where can I donate to? So we do have a list of some organizations and kind of grassroots community groups that are coming together right now to do some work. And if you have any additions to either of those things, either in terms of the resources or for different places to donate to that are servicing Indigenous folks right now, both sides of the medicine line, so north or south, feel free to send me a message, Lindsey at indigenousclimateaction.com, or you can also just send us a message on any of our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where you can follow us along with Indigenous Rising Media and Indigenous Environmental Network. And then just one final thing before we all sign off. We will be having another webinar next week. So for the next 2 weeks, we'll still be having some webinars in collaboration between ICA and IEN. So next week, we're going to be framing it around compassion. So how we're coming together during this weird, trying time that is the pandemic. So once again, just thank you everyone for tuning in. If everyone wants to come off on mute and we can all say goodbye and thank you, maybe in our languages. Akuke, everyone.
Chai hai, Bamapi Glabman.
On Yuahi, Nyawak Goa.
Beto je washteno habi cha daguchi abi.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye now. Cool. I see it's off of the live stream. Thanks, Jen.
Sure, that
Thank
was so
you so much,
great.
everyone. That was
Thank
so
you.
good. Yeah, so does anyone have any, oh, thanks, Carlee. Yeah, if folks just want to, send me links to anything, I will post those up on the event page, just so everyone can see them. Yeah, thank you all so much for your participation again. We'll also connect back with you about the honorariums as well and how to go about managing those. So Jen and I will connect with whoever we need to connect to and get those situated. But thank you all again so much. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any final words or thoughts. Tuffy, I see it's time for a smoke. So thank you all again so much. If no one has anything to add, I guess we'll go ahead and close out the meeting. But thank you all again.
Thanks,
See you soon.
everyone.
Have a good day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Tuff.